Welcome to the Lila Life Show. I'm your host, Linda Andrews, and I am so excited for today's episode. We have Eugenia Oganova, and she is an amazing business soul strategist, author, 4 best-selling books, Transcension Mentor, and a podcast host of her own show. Welcome to the show today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here. I think this is going to be so much fun. I'm already so excited for this chat.
It's like, if it seems like I'm bursting through the seams, it's because I am. So great. I would love to read a little bit more about your bio here. Clairvoyant, Transcension mentor, renowned internationally, self-made millionaire. We have a true expert on our hands, published across many different outlets, and empowering female coaches, personal transformation experts, and holistic professionals. And what I love, your approach, masculine/linear, feminine/non-linear. We can get into a little bit of that. I think we see many of these imbalances around the world, and helping people increase their monthly income from 10K to 100K, which, you know me, I'm excited about people having more money to do what they want to do and design their life from that space. So helping attract high ticket clients through clear messaging, strategic alignment, and powerful energetics. So whether you are new to entrepreneurship or well on your way, I think you're going to find something today. And I must cite these best-selling books: Mission Alpha, Awakening the Harmony Within, The Secret of Segment, and your 4th book, Wealthy by Soul Design. And I think that that's going to be a lot of what we're talking about today. So welcome again to the show. And I'd love to hear, brief or as long as you want to, how you got to this now moment.
Well, I do everything backwards in my life. So I did not start like most people with like, oh, let me figure myself out and then figure out what I'm going to do and then go through lots of self-discovery in order to arrive here. I started backwards. I was born clairvoyant and conscious. So
Wow.
I remember being born. I remember like working with people since I was 2 years old. By the time I was 14, I already had a full practice of paying clients, and I was helping people understand their purpose in life and how to live life in the most aligned way. Many
Wow.
of my clients were business owners. It just happened this way. And maybe because my father owned a business, it just kind of like it ended up being in my world. Entrepreneurship was sort of what I've known from the very beginning. And my brain doesn't work in a traditional sense because I'm clairvoyant, so I'm neurodivergent. So I finished school like 3 years earlier, got the higher education earlier. By the time I was 18, I was already finished with a lot of these things. And I found it very boring. And I found a traditional schooling, traditional way of anything very boring. I always do things my way. And that's, to me, was kind of a natural. Like I didn't have to learn how do you like stand up and do things your way. I always just believed that of course it's going to be my way, because my way is like I'm aligned. Like I can internally feel and know and sense what the right way for me is, and it could be totally different for someone else. And I always was able to generate income through doing my own work. So a lot of my clients weren't. They were struggling. They were having self-worth issues. They were having attention issues. They were having procrastinations issues. They were doing something based on obligation or conditioning and programming from their family of origin or whatever else, and not doing their soul work. And they all wanted to. And because many of them were entrepreneurs, I naturally ended up kind of helping them generate more money doing the thing that they love. So that's how I fell into, in a sense, working with entrepreneurs, not because I ever thought of myself as, oh, I'm going to be a business and marketing coach. It's like, no, I'm a spiritual mentor, and that's what I've always been from the very beginning of my life. But somehow my skills seem to mentor people more towards like, and this is how you get wealth into your life, by aligning to who you are and actually delivering your gift to the world. So I would hear from my clients things like, oh, thank you so much for helping with my market positioning. You did this thing, or you said this thing, I applied it, and now like I sold more of whatever it is that she was selling. Or, thank you so much for helping me with this message thing. I started speaking this way, and then in a sales process, it worked way better, and a person signed up for something. I was like, what am I doing? Market positioning, messaging? Like I didn't even know the terms. So over the years, of course, I've learned. I mean, I've been in business for over 30 years successfully. So I kind of like, I put more tools into my toolbox to translate the gift that I had, which is also part of my methodology, is that instead of trying to learn more, think of it like you already come in with exactly the thing you need to do. It's already in there. It's pre-installed. You don't have to learn more. You need to uncover it by clearing up all the shit that's mucking it up, which is conditioning and imprinting and karmic overlays and everything else that's dimming your light. So it's not like, oh, let me find my light. Your light is in there. It's how do we clean up what's in the way of that light shining brightly? And then, yes, learning some strategy, which is like my thing, how to correctly put that out into the world, sort of like come down from the mountain into the village where the people are who actually need your gift. So how to do that in a way that is aligned and doesn't feel like it twists you into a pretzel. So that's how I ended up doing what I'm doing, sort of in a way backwards, by being a conscious mentor that fell into being a business coach.
Why do you think you were drawn to businesses and business coaching?
Naturally, because I like money. I love money. In fact, I think of money as energy. So I never necessarily wanted money for the sake of money, but I look at money as we are meant to be conduits for wealth. And when wealth comes through us, we enrich the world. And I don't know about you, but like I know for women, we don't just want to buy a gold-plated toilet or a jet, right? We want to contribute to our community. So any woman I know who has millions of dollars going through her, it's not like she's going to build more and more for what, a spa for herself. Like, no, it's we give it to community. So that's, to me, sort of the reason for having wealth. And I always thought of wealth as something that naturally exists in the world, and abundance is a factory setting. Like we're meant to be abundant, but we twist ourselves by all these other layers of stuff that's not us, that separates us from the frequency that we're meant to be at. So that fascination has always been there. It's just I never thought of it as a business coach or business anything. But because I ran my own life in a way that I generated income through doing my soul work, and I've had many businesses, all successful, and all of them were aligned to who I am, or at least I had to figure out how to make them align to me. That's ended up being just a life learned skill. And a lot of people who come to me, I'm one of those people that has a library of experiences. Like it's not something I read in a book yesterday or some other person taught me and now I'm teaching you. It's something that I've lived through, and I probably know every possible way that a spiritual entrepreneur could try to do it. I know all the wrong ways and I know the right ways. So that's how business component fell in there. It's just more of I'm a natural strategist, and I very much understand the and I fully stand for that. You could, and in fact, I believe you meant to generate income through being fully yourself and standing in your soul expertise. And then if you want to convert that into a business, or if you want to use it in the workplace, let's say if you have a corporate job, that's up to you. I happen to specialize more on entrepreneurship because I've never in my life had a job. Like I know how to be a self-starter that just moves through life doing her thing. So that's why I naturally attract to me people who are of that type, entrepreneurs.
I love it. I'm curious for you. You mentioned programming and how that can lead to people's blocks. I have so many questions. Where does that come from? Let's start there. Where does that come from?
All right. To answer that, since I do everything backwards, I'm going to step back and give you the bigger picture so that the answer makes sense. We come into each lifetime with two suitcases. One is our gifts and expertise and amazing goodies that we learned in other lifetimes, something that came from our soul, something that the universe channels into us. The other suitcase is all the crap. So this is the lessons that we need to learn. This is the karmic issues that we need to clean up. And this is the patterns that sort of like preset us for building the power by extracting it from the stuff where we left the power behind in some other lifetimes or circumstances. When we actually are born, those two suitcases open up and they start blending together. So you will naturally activate some of your gift as a child, and you will also activate some of those karmic patterns. The karmic patterns, in order to be apparent to us, have to be triggered, and some people, most people, are not that conscious to become aware of it as soon as it's triggered. So then certain circumstances happen. And that's why we choose specific family where certain things happen. That's why we choose specific circumstances or attract them, whichever your belief system is. But it is conditioning and imprinting and programming is sort of like a way to activate what came in the suitcase that is karmic in order for you to become more powerful. So I don't look at karma as a negative. I don't look at all these things as a negative. I look at it more like the more aware you are of how you've been programmed or how you've been conditioned by your family, by maybe them expecting something of you a certain way, or maybe you not questioning things certain way, and then realizing you know, painted yourself into a corner and now wondering like, why am I here? The more you're aware of that, good for you, because that means you're at that point of just about ready to extract the power from wherever it got trapped. So the conditioning and imprinting are the ways to make it very clear for our conscious mind to understand what's in the subconscious that needs to be taken advantage of, I guess. And when it is, that adds to the power of your gift. Because nobody comes in here to just be an angelic being. I mean, this is a planet Earth, and it's a little bit of a mid grinder as far as like intensity here. So we got lots of opposites, and some of them, you know, maybe you like, some of them maybe you don't like, but from the soul perspective, it's not good or bad, it just is. And it's a dynamic interplay of two opposites that then generates the life force, essentially. So in order for you to fully have the power of who you're meant to be here, you need both sides. You need the sort of a gift, angelic, wonderful, amazing superpower side, but you also need all the whatever difficulties that happen to you, or you created, whichever way your perspective is, whatever karmic stuff that God brought in that then pulled towards you certain circumstances that maybe were difficult. You also need those, not for the sake of like, oh, and the bad stuff happened to me, but for the sake of what can you extract from that? Like a lot of my power and confidence came from having to deal with a lot of things, not because I just like came this way. Like I had to learn how to do that by taking the power back from the places where I left it. And that's exactly what I teach my clients.
Wow. And it feels like it's like it can get lost or muddled in the darkness, or you can be in that light and like come through that and have a different experience if you let yourself do that.
Exactly. I kind of look at the darkness as like periods of darkness are necessary in order for you to activate your light. So if you only have light, you're going to have a very boring life. Yeah, it might be happy and whatever. And occasionally we have a, like I call them rest lifetimes, when there's like nothing going on and you just have a very boring life. But these people usually wouldn't be somebody interested in personal development because there's nothing to develop. It's a very basic life. But majority of us who are like the souls that have this passion inside and something, and we're driven and we want to like wake up and next level of something, well, that's because it's pre-installed in you to be that person, to have that trajectory. And that momentum is created through us. I always find it funny when people think of a momentum as if it's some sort of a rare animal in a magical forest that they need to find. Like, how do I find my momentum to make something happen? It's like, no, momentum is self-created. And it's self-created by the fact of looking at your crap and figuring out where you want to get with it. So you become the rocket that's, you know, flying forward.
How does the two suitcases, if at all, connect to the linear and the non-linear, the masculine, the feminine? Do those connect?
Not directly, but of course everything is connected. So the way I look at the linear and non-linear is third dimensional strategy. So anything you think of like step-by-step processes, like how to make something happen by doing this first, then doing that, then building on this. So that's a linear strategy. And in business and in marketing, of course, without that, you cannot have a business. Like you have to have that. So some people that are a little too far on the spiritual side that then want to somehow have clients just magically arrive into their world, well, understand that you do need that structural masculine side. That's the linear strategy. The other side, the non-linear, I call it quantum creation in my methodology. So that would be like connecting two dots by, like, if they're on a piece of paper and you just bend the paper and the dots touch instead of having to draw the line between two dots. So that's where you are frequency oriented. So you pick a frequency of something that you desire, you know the frequency you are yourself at right now, and then you try to synchronize those as much as possible. And the more you do, the more you draw from the quantum field that event, activity, client, money, whatever it is the desire was, towards you, which is, of course, why the personal work is very much required, because then you can upgrade your frequency to match the desire. Versus if somebody who doesn't want to do the work and internal change, well, everything you want is on another side of your fear. So if you haven't done the work, you cannot vibrate differently than what you're vibrating at now, which means you
You're
can't have.
keeping it
Yeah,
inaccessible.
exactly. So that's why the personal work is sort of a must if you want to do the nonlinear creation. But the two have to go together, because if you only try to do nonlinear, it does work, definitely, because universe is much bigger than this third dimension. So yes, it does work, including in business, but it's a hit or miss, and it's not a sustainable strategy. It's more like somebody who says, well, clients come to me through referrals. Okay, good for you. I want that for you. And I think it's awesome when that happens. But unless you have huge traffic of thousands of people coming to you and all of them referring to you, you don't really have a business. You just have a nice spiritual practice when people think you're great and occasionally send you someone. So that would be like, I'm going to intend, and I'm going to do a vision board, and I'm going to tune in, and then I'm going to manifest. Well, that without a strategy is never going to land in a third dimension. So yes, you do want to do those spiritual components, and I teach some of them within like the way I work, of course, specific techniques as to how you can match something in a quantum field and what needs to happen within you for that to actually manifest. But the strategy part is, how do you capitalize on the fact that you are in the third dimension? How do you actually use this to your advantage? I think a lot of spiritual people tend to push away from here, like the density is bad. Like, I just want to be love and light and higher frequency. And it's like, well, lower frequency is where the money is. So if you like want to actually be the conduit for wealth, you need to be in the low frequency. You just don't need to be in the convoluted, messed up low frequency. So just like, there is a harmonious earth vibration, which is boom, there's really like a gong, like a sound of something really low vibration. That is very healthy, very healing for the body, and very good for your business. Versus, let's say, a messy kind of chaotic energy. So it's not about high and low. It's about, are you able to be grounded enough here and then use it to your advantage instead of being used by it? And are you able to be conscious enough to utilize the nonlinear side? So people that come to me tend to be conscious on the nonlinear side enough and need more strategy. But then there's also majority of population on this planet is actually the other way. They are very good at strategy and utilizing this reality, and need to do some awakening and upgrades into higher frequencies, which is actually kind of funny that I find a lot of times when spiritual masters practically come to me, they like, oh, I need to work more on like opening up the abundance flow and activating my abundance codes. And it's like, no, honey, you already got all of that. You don't need to do more of that. But we've been conditioned to that on that, because this is what's being put out there, and starting like even from religion, right? Like every religion teaches you to go up in frequency. Every spiritual teaching teaches you how to go open up something. Even the typical new age is like how to open up higher chakras. And then they become dysregulated because they open up too much, all the higher stuff, and have nothing grounding them. So it's like those teachings are for the earthlings. You're probably the 8% that's not. So if you are already sensitive, already spiritual, already kind of like get messages and whatever, and you're like, that you're super aware person, chances are you don't need to activate more of your higher chakras and higher frequency. You actually need to land that spaceship in 3D so that it can like function here.
Because you're here.
Right.
For
a reason.
Yeah.
Otherwise you'd just be a light being.
I've been really into soil for a while now. And I think it's been interesting as you're talking. It's like, oh, I can naturally be very high up. And then that's been this very grounding practice. And I have to be working actively to be in the soil, in the dirt, and like feel that very rooted connection. And it's been a practice now that I'm laughing, reflecting of when I could tell the gifts more and more came at the same time that I started to really get into soil. It's like, get that grounded, be grounded. I'm curious what your perspective is of what you see. It feels like macro, like what is going on the planet, on the earth right now?
Well, we're shifting from the age of sort of counting the steps, like from that linear age of patriarchy, which is hierarchical, which is orderly, which is regimented, and quite often rigid, into the age of individuality, which is where the authority is on the inside. So for a long time, the humanity has been in the projected authority perception. So I don't have an authority, my tribe is my authority. So then the self-definition was based on the group of people you're in, which could be a country, like patriotic, which could be religion, like I'm from this religion. It could be even just family or standing in society and so on. And the self, the individual identity, was discouraged. It was, well, at some point, like literally abused and just meant to like not exist. And that's the whole heretical concept. Like if you show up with your unique self, you will be seen as somebody who's disrupting the morphogenic field of the group, because you're not being one of the group. So
get in line.
Right. So all of you who are black sheep of the family, like that's because you are ahead of the curve. So you came in as being the individual into a tribal field. And tribes defend themselves by the field becoming sort of like the entity of its own that feeds off the people that are part of the tribe. So that's how we've been living as humanity for a very long time. And a lot of it is actually how the Earthling Soul Group is. And where we're going into the age of individuality, which is the standing in your own authority, where you are now self-navigating, not the tribe navigating you. You are navigating, which means if we do choose to come together in communities, so we can call them tribes if we want to, but those morphogenic fields are not permanent. They are created by the fact of all of the individuals choosing to do a project together, and then they could be dissolved when the project is done, versus how it was before. When you're born into this field, you're essentially in there till you die. So the individuality implies that you are self-navigated. That means you have to understand enough of yourself, understand enough of reality, and hear messages. So by messages, I don't mean like speaking to God source directly. I mean, some people can, but majority can't, in the way that like linear language. But what I mean is that listening to internal signals, be in a conscious relationship with your body, with your intuition, with your emotions, and not being emotionally driven either. I think that's kind of the transitory step that a lot of times people, because emotions been so suppressed, kind of think like, oh, now it all has to be emotional. Like I just have to be like letting all the emotions flow all the time. And yes, letting emotions flow is healthy, and not letting them flow is not healthy. It causes disease. So of course it's good, but there's a big difference in looking at emotion as a cause to action versus looking at emotion as something you're currently processing and then letting it go through its cycle, its wave, and settle into something that then will create the result that you want. So that intermediary step is when people mistake emotional navigation for like, this is actual navigation, like emotion is my navigation, which it's not. So intuition is not emotion. Intuition is something different. It's based on vertical alignment. So when we move fully into the age of individuality, which begins in 2027, so we have a couple more years to get there, that's where the planetary frequency shifts into helping you fully own that navigation. And by that time, hopefully you have uncovered enough of your emotions so you can draw wisdom from that, instead of looking at the emotions as something that you either have to suppress when you don't like it or override, or something that you have to let free and follow, which is also very much a recipe for chaos and disaster. So instead, the individuality age we're going into is about actually being a conscious member of society. So it gets us to the next level that like comes after that even. So if we're looking at a really bigger view here, if we started from the tribal, where each person was just a cog in a machine, essentially for the benefit of the tribe, but in a negative sense, like the cog was not conscious and didn't have any rights, essentially. It was just there to serve the machine. What we're going into is the conscious collective conscious, where each person is an individual and uniquely contributes to the whole. So that shifts everything. Like the educational systems, for example, like why was I so bored with them? Well, because I'm already the individual from that future sort of. And when I came in, I was told that like this is how we do it here. And to me, that made no sense because half of the stuff I learned, I would never ever use. And there's specific things that were actually more necessary and more beneficial for me to know that maybe were even taught. So I had to do a lot of self-studying to compensate for what I didn't get in a traditional education. And I'm like overeducated because of that. But I think a lot of times that's what people don't realize is that they think like, well, I'm not smart enough, or I'm not this, I'm not that, because I don't know certain things. And it's like, you're not meant to know those things. You're meant to know what will propel forward your gift. So you need to get clear on who are you, what is your gift, what is your superpower, what is your soul expertise. And then the material, the linear part, learn the strategies and the educational pieces that help you with that. Like if you want to, let's say, be an energy healer and sell packages for $10,000, you can. But what do you need to know for that? Well, marketing strategy, messaging strategy, you need to understand how to do business. So these things, yes, you need to learn. Instead of thinking like, well, I need to have like education in a sort of a traditional sense, or I need to learn more spiritual stuff. You already know that. So understanding where to put your effort in so you are a unique component of the human collective, and that each one of us is still serving the collective, but not negatively like with the tribe when you're a cog in a machine, but as an individual that has like your own unique stake, like something where you put the flag on your mountain and only you can do that.
Which it feels like that is how each of us were built, is no one is the same.
Right.
Right. And that because no one is the same, that means that there is infinite abundance, because like I can't be competitive with you because we're not the same, and there's infinity available. That's how I'm understanding that.
Well, in a sense, abundance, as in, as I said, it's a factory setting, like it just is. Then we each are unique cosmic event one time. So whatever combination of factors that you are, it's uniquely made for your specific mission, for your specific journey. And that journey is not selfish. It's not just for you. It's how you then meant to contribute to human collective by fully being who you are. That's kind of goes back to like, why would I want millions of dollars? Well, because it's not for you. You're the conduit for it. But if you can be the vortex that pulls that through, whoa, now you get to, I don't know, maybe save Amazon forest or clean oceans or whatever you want to put this money flow into, because you are the one who able to, let's say, create the vortex to pull in that abundance flow through you. Okay. So it's like looking at everything that you do from the standpoint of how am I serving instead of what am I getting here, but how am I serving? How is this actually benefiting the larger picture? And the individuality piece, there is no comparison to others because you are uniquely you, but that truly happens only when you fully own the frequency of who you are. And that means we shed layers of conditioning and imprinting that are mucking up the frequency, because conditioning of like, this is how you should be, that's conditioning. Imprinting is, this is how my parents were. And programming is, this is what I should do because if then, like if I do this, then this happens. So this is kind of like how, you know, conditioning, imprinting, and programming. If you are under all of that is mucking up the frequency that you're meant to be. And you only can create the amazing vision and be uncomparable, like be market of one essentially, by fully standing in your frequency. So a lot of times people try to figure out like, oh, what's so unique about me? And it's like, what do you need to clean up that is stopping you from being you? If you do that, you just naturally by default will be unique individual.
That is the default mode, but there's a lot that's blocking that. Yeah, that's really beautiful. I am wondering, do you have a percentage, if you had to guess, how many people are in the mucking up mode?
Not necessarily in that way, but I can say that from the point of the soul level frequencies, like what I do is some of it is very multidimensional, and I connect to non-physical beings. I work with the solar console, which is the conscious bodies of Kadishtu guardians that oversees this planet, in addition to business strategy. So you can tell right there, I'm not a typical business coach. Well, from all of that, I can say that if we divide the human population onto starseeds and earthlings, and please, like, don't get that one is better than another. Like, no, we're all equal in the God source perspective. But earthlings is a soul group that is essentially native to this planet. Starseeds are the souls that came here from elsewhere. And I know it's kind of fashionable to say, well, we all came from elsewhere. Well, yeah, in a bigger sense, earthlings also came from somewhere at some point, but let's just say they're a very big group that came at once. And they actually came through our sun. While starseeds, which I am, and I'm sure you are, and many probably in your audience, those are the individuals that kind of never fit in anywhere and usually have much wider range, higher level of sensitivity, different perceptions that are non-linear, that kind of pre-installed and always were there. And we are from other places. So you can say other planets, star systems, if you're thinking in a linear sense. I would say different dimensions and different frequencies, but let's just say not part of the Earthling soul group. So that is 8%.
8.
Yes. And that means 82% is the Earthling soul group. So,
92.
Sorry, 92%.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of like how we can look at it. And the reason I say 82 is because I'm thinking ahead. The other 10% is the top part of the Earthling soul group that is sort of towards conscious perspective. So that's where sort of the answer to your question is like, how many people are like consciously aware and more in this advanced stage versus still in a tribal consciousness. That's where the 82% is. So 82% is still fully in a tribal, and the other is sort of awakening towards. And the out of the awakening, all starseeds are kind of naturally in that, just because we're different frequency, plus some of the Earthling soul group.
It's so interesting. I've noticed this mechanism showing up personally where I feel protective of the individual and really reticent around the group, the tribal. Like I can kind of sniff that out a mile away, and I'm like, oh, whoa, this is, we need to make room for the individual, and that the tribal can block that. And you've explained it so clean and crisply that it's really interesting to see that tribal, and it makes me understand more of why I feel protective of the individuals, to give them room to almost like clip out of the tribal to find themselves again. And that they have a lot of images of that as you were speaking about the tribal and the individual.
That actually, like, if we connect this to wealth, to generating income, to wealth by soul design, that's where stepping into the tribe is important while you're an individual. So this is like two pathways. If somebody is traditional, like all religions teach you how to get out of the tribe, how to go in the cave, go in a mountain, go be a monk, go be a nun, go somewhere far away from the tribe so you can find yourself. Majority of people who are already in that place and have that sensitivity need actually to do an opposite. They need to step out of the mountain and the cave and go back into the village, because they are now the teachers for the community, and they keep trying to stay further up in the mountain. Like, how can I go further away? And it's like, what's the benefit of that? It's sort of like everything has its place. And that's why I brought up service before. So majority of spiritual coaches or healers or personal transformation experts, you are here to benefit the tribe. You're not here to stay on the mountain and expound more of this spiritual stuff to other spiritual people. They already
have it. Yeah.
Right. So it's actually about going into the community. And this is where I think a lot of resistance is for people, is that they don't know how to do it without killing individuality, because they're not self-masterful enough. They go into the tribe and they start to be influenced by the tribe. And if you are influenced by the community you're trying to educate, you're not a leader of it anymore. You're now a member of it. So we must make sure that if you want to generate income and be a conduit for wealth, you first of all choose to go into community. So you need to get over whatever the things in you that say, oh, but I can't have sales calls. Oh, but I can't do content. Or, oh, I hate social media. Well, all of that is because you feel used by it. Because you give it power, and then you feel less powerful. So learning how to do it without giving it power, you're now bringing total magic into a world that's messy and maybe not so liked. So now you automatically stand out. You automatically the leader. It's just you have to be able to handle that. And that's where some of the karmic overlays come in and say, oh, no, no, if I'm noticed, haha, last time I was noticed, I was a witch and I was burnt. So
Mm-hmm.
no. And how are you planning on being visible in your business and getting clients come to you if you're not visible? So it's sort of like we do need to work with the things that trigger us, because otherwise the very thing that you want, that's why I said that everything I want is on another side of my fear. If you don't face the fear, you don't extract the power from the issue. And if you don't extract the power from it, you can't actually lead. You just stay high up on the mountain. Well, good for you, but how does it serve humanity? And we're all here to serve. And especially if you want to have your own business, and especially if you want to actually make that business more than a hobby that barely making like 1,000 a month, but if you want this to make 10,000, 20,000 a month, 100,000 a month, if you want to be able to create movement in a human collective, you have to be the leader. And the only way to be the leader is to show up without losing your light in the areas that are tribal that might not be light. That doesn't mean go down in like the dreads of society. I'm not saying that. Most of the clients I work with individuals that are kind of on the cusp of becoming more conscious. So they're already looking for a mentor or a coach to go further. But it's still, you kind of went down to the marketplace from your mountain. And the easiest, the best way to do that is becoming self-navigated to such an extent that you're not afraid to be visible. You're not afraid to be not liked. You don't worry about what other people think of you or if they judge you, because they will. And it's okay, because we all have our projections, but that doesn't matter, because if you're in the right frequency, you are the cosmic event. That's only one time. That frequency is designed for somebody. When we come in, we already have some clients pre-installed for us. Those are the individuals who sign up a contract with us before they were born and we were born, in order to receive the type of gift you are bringing, because you're the conduit that could bring that specific combination of factors that only you could. So the more you own that and the less you let yourself being influenced, the more you can utilize 3D to your advantage, which is what I said earlier. Like social media is a perfect example. I can't tell you how many times I heard it, like, oh, I hate social media, I don't want to do social media. And it's like, okay, social media is the way to have access to in an entire world, like billions of people.
Literally.
So you're telling me, like, you don't want that. Why? It's just, most people, when we start decoding that, they don't want it because, oh, well, it's stupid, it's shallow, it's this, it's that. And it's like, well, yeah, that's because the way you're using it, it's using you. So like I go on social media maybe once a day for 10, 15 minutes and only for business. And I have a lot of attention coming my way and people coming into my world and then purchasing from me simply from that. But it's leveraged. And it's very specific. It's very strategic. So you can learn specific strategies that help you utilize the systems. Just like the sales call. Like how many people I heard like, oh, I don't want to do sales calls. I just want to sell in DMs. And it's like, well, do you think it's easier somehow? In DMs, it's less personal and it's more typing. So unless you're 20 years old who lives with your phone, I don't know, I'm almost 50. So like for me, phone is not something like I live with. I just have it somewhere in my purse. So I don't want to live in DMs. I'd rather have a human conversation with somebody for half an hour and they got something from me, I got something from them, we connected heart to heart and they either chose to work with me or not. But I also have a lot of strategies, so I don't talk to people who are wasting my time. So I don't talk to people who will never qualify. I talk to very specific people. That's the same thing I teach my clients, is like, not let's avoid all the things that we don't like. It's like, no, no, there's certain things that right now you don't like. You don't like for the reason that you're giving it power. Stop giving it power. And then these things can actually serve you really well. And you can do much less of them than you think you need to, you know, in order to create the result that you want.
With the social media, I think about the algorithms to those. I think about AI similarly in that bucket around AI algorithms. The message I'm hearing is they can use you or you can use them. I'm curious, specific to algorithms and artificial intelligence, what you think and what that role
absolutely.
is. Yeah,
Absolutely. Artificial intelligence is just, you know, code. So like, think of it like if you're a conscious being, you essentially at some point get to God code, right? You get how the reality is made. All that artificial intelligence that is decoded, like how to use the linear data. It's the same thing. It's just a smaller, teeny little portion of trying to be God over here. So why not use that to your advantage? For
Mhm.
example, if you're writing a post, you can write a post that's just educating your audience, and it will probably get people saying like, oh, that's very nice, thank you very much, and nobody will buy.
Mhm.
Or you can write a post that converts them into buyers because the way you wrote it hit all the right points, spoke directly to their soul, held the right frequency, and the words that you used, then algorithm utilized and promoted you because it wants to just get more traction anyway on the social media. So it will promote you if what you're delivering is getting people to respond. So as long as you found the right frequency and the correct words to clearly articulate the value of your intangible work and put that out into the world correctly, then the algorithms work for you. And then you need one post maybe instead of 200 posts.
Right. And that sounds similar to AI, or, that being a part of AI in some ways.
Yeah.
So interesting. I love it. I'm curious for the person that's listening that's still really rubbing up against fear, just in general. Maybe they're afraid of everything. They're feeling stuck in their life. Maybe it's a breakthrough into business, or it's getting out of the fear and the confusion. What's a grounded step or exercise that they can take right now to help move through that?
Well, first of all, get angry. Like, stop giving power to fear thing. I'm so afraid. Just get angry. Like, I'm mad at this. Like, that's it. No more. Like, I'm not going to give power to fear. So anger is a fire element. Fire element is very healthy. Somebody's scared. They have way too much of either air or water. So they need to dry that up and clean it up. So get angry. Angry, not at something specifically, but just like, I don't know,
Feel
go work out or dance or just like feel that, no more thing. That's healthy. Don't live there, but like for short periods of time, that's very healthy. So that's a step one. Second, look at where the hell did you give away your power? Like, so afraid that, like, what happened to you? So were you always afraid? Like, did you just live your whole life terrified for 30 years or 40 years or whatever your age is? Probably not. So look for, well, where were the moments where you weren't afraid? What was different then? Usually, if we are conscious and honest with ourselves, we can track, oh, here I got scared because I didn't get liked here. Here I tried to launch this course and nobody bought. Here I had the sales call and the person thought like, who are you to charge this much or something. All of those are not the reason to be scared. They are just means that like they give you data. So it's like, oh, so that means on the sales call, I did not own my authority and the value of my work. And all it was, it's just this person reflected that to me. So now you have a choice. Do you want to follow what's in the mirror and just remain the same? Or do you want to change? And now reflection would change. And the next person on the sales call would love you and think it's totally worth to pay whatever it is that you asked for. Same thing with like if you launch something and maybe a few people bought and not what you expected, it doesn't mean like, oh, it's all bad. It just means, well, did you know anything about market positioning, messaging? Did you promote it enough? Like, were enough people even saw it? Was it even a good product? Maybe you slapped something together because you thought it should sell and it was not even aligned. So being honest with yourself clears a lot of fear. You just have to choose to honestly look at what is without attaching it worthiness. It doesn't mean you're more worthy or less worthy if something worked out or not, if you were liked or if you weren't liked. None of that matters at all. The only thing that matters is that if you step into who you are, first of all, you're automatically worthy just because we all are. And the second thing, are you living your life as a worthy person? Because if you're procrastinating, if you're avoiding, if you going back on your own word, like you said, I'm gonna do it, and then you don't do it. If you don't challenge yourself and step up, if your risk factor is like 0 because you like refuse to risk anything, well, then you cannot be in a different place. And maybe that's okay if that's how you want your life, but then seriously ask yourself, is that what you want? If you want something different than what you have, then you have to change something. That could be external and internal, and in my understanding, it's always both. So if you want different experience in anything, like let's say you're at your job and you're thinking to start a business and you're afraid. Well, why the hell are you afraid? Why aren't you excited? Why aren't you just driven to learn more about it? Why are you afraid? Probably not because of business. Chances are there's like maybe your mother's voice or something that's kind of speaking to your ear and saying like, who are you to do this? Or just sit here, or you're safe here. Well, do you like yourself like that? No? Well, then you kind of have to risk and then see what's on another side of that fear. Or maybe you're already entrepreneur and you're already out there in the world doing your thing. Well, then where's the fear? Fear is not a stop sign. Fear is simply proceed with caution, like a blinking red light.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have fear, it just means pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
It's something in you telling you, "Ooh, you're bumping into some issue here. Pay attention, pay attention." Yeah, pay attention and proceed nevertheless.
Mm-hmm. Including there may be something you don't know that you need to learn. I mean, there's so many reasons why you could have that fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But understanding why, like let's say, like if somebody is writing content and it's not converting.
Mm-hmm.
So what they might conclude is, oh, there's something wrong with me, or what I'm selling is not sellable, or nobody wants what I'm selling. And it's like, okay, is this serving you? Let's say if those answers are true, does that work for you?
Mm-hmm.
No, you still want to sell the thing that you want to sell. You still want to like do the thing you want to do. Okay, well then let's find a different answer. What else could it be? Well, maybe you suck at writing posts. You need to actually learn how to do it. Maybe what you're selling is not clearly articulated and nobody understands what the hell it is you're trying to sell. Maybe what you are selling is so undefined and you're just doing it because you learn it from somebody else and it's something you need to deepen in. Like I hear this all the time when people like sell a technique they learned, like, oh, this, MT technique or this, breath work technique or this thing. And it's like, well, and then they wonder why they can't sell it because it's not theirs. It's something you've learned. So if you're in that place and you're afraid that there's something wrong, well, probably the answer is, what are you afraid of showing that's actually yours? Maybe you are more about somebody feeling the depth of their heart connection, and you happen to do that through breath work. Maybe you're somebody who helps people get the next promotion by speaking correctly to their boss. Maybe like that's your magic thing. Like, how to speak to power in a way that gets you what you want. And you happen to do that through energy healing. Like there, look for what's missing. In other words, anytime you're afraid, go into action. The stop sign thing is only going to keep you exactly where you are.
Amen. So many gems. So your Wealth by Design, Wealth by Soul Design. Could you speak a little bit about this book and where people, I know you have a few different freebies that would be great for people to come to, but I want to hear a little bit more about what people can expect with Wealth by Soul Design and your freebie.
Oh, absolutely. So my methodology called the Conscious Future Method, because I literally help people create future consciously. So that is based on, like, if you are an entrepreneur, if you are working within some sort of an intangible personal transformation, like I'm your person. This is literally the world I've been living in, and this is the types of people that I help build profitable businesses that are soul aligned. So when we're speaking of soul aligned, that's kind of a generalized term. And the way I do it is Wealth by Soul Design. That means you have a unique soul design, as in how you're made, how you design, what are your innate components. This is your 2 suitcases. This is like how your energetics are made. And the wealth as a preset sort of piece that it is there. And every soul design has some profit potential. There's no soul design that's like designed to not have money. Every design has some profit potential. So what I do with my clients is I help them decode their profit potential within their design. And to not make it sound so out there, that translates into figuring out your expertise, which then connects to market positioning, which then connects to your methodology, like unique way of how you're doing it, and then how you're going to talk about it in a way that you can sell it for higher level pricing. So I teach premium level pricing. So as an offers for over 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, 30,000 for intangible work. So not for like, I'm going to change your website or I'm going to help you lose 5 pounds, but for the like become the leader of yourself type of thing, more confident, or like align internally to your inner navigation or something like that, that most times, pretty much most business coaches would not take these clients because they have no idea what to do with us. But that's what I do. So Wealth by Soul Design is a book that describes my entire methodology, lays out to you exactly how to make that happen, and gives you very practical examples. And if you go on wealthbysouldesign.com, you're going to get a digital copy of my book with tons of bonuses that all going to showcase to you how you can actually get there. Like there's one of them, as I describe how I got my first 100,000, like what specifically I did, like the the whole layout. And so you can see like, oh, you can actually do this. Like this is very practical and possible, but certain frequency adjustment and mindset adjustment is required. And obviously you do need to learn certain components of business and marketing in order to do it well. So that book gives you a full layout of how to make that happen. And another free gift that I have for you is Expand Your Wealth Capacity. That is a mini series. It's very short, but it's to the point, and it tells you exactly what you can do in yourself to shift the frequency. It's like, oh, I need to get this part, and that part. And once I get that, and I utilize it, I can totally see like, this is how I create $250,000 a year. This is how I create $1 million a year, and so on. Like, I know it might sound really out there if right now you're only making $1,000 but a month or something, but understand that a lot of the reason you're here is simply because these things you don't know. You know, once you know them,
see that gap.
Right. Like once you close that gap within yourself, maybe you don't want millions. Maybe you just want to generate 8,000 to 10,000 a month, but you can literally doing that. So if you go to expandyourwealthcapacity.com, you will get that mini series that I literally show you like 1, 2, 3, 4, kind of like this is how you do it.
So much, so many gems. And thank you so much for being here, Eugenia. This is a real blessing, and so much. I feel like there was so much. It's so much so quick. It felt like 5 hours. A closing thought for our guests today.
If you have a vision, a dream in you, that means it's possible for you. It's possible for you in this lifetime. It's literally possible for you specifically. And it's actually your responsibility to figure out what is missing, like what's the gap that you don't know, or what needs to be shed in order to make that happen. So it's not about just like, I'm going to work my ass off. Like, we're not talking about that. We're talking about finding a specific pathway. But if you have the dream, don't give up on a dream. Because I hear that a lot when people say like, oh, I just feel I'm going to, I don't know, have this healing community, or I feel like I'm going to influence this world. And I see myself like helping people go so much deeper and connecting to this, I don't know, quantum something crystalline energy from 7th dimension. But then, well, but you know, here I am selling $100 sessions. Like this is like pipe dream. And it's like, no. If you have that vision, that like God's source put that in you. It's
that's
part of
for
your design.
you.
Right. It's like the soul design is that is in your imprint. That's your wealth. The rest is just, okay, great. Find a coach that can help you decode that, open up, look for where the gaps are, do your part to serve your vision, but don't give up on it.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have concluded our episode today with the Lila Life Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Such a blessing. So much. I just like ground down from this, and we will see you next time. Thank you again for tuning in, and thanks so much for being here.